Hello everyone, welcome back to day 2 of EDC's 2021 Cleantech Export Week. My name is Guillermo Freire and I am the Vice President of Structure and Project Finance and Cleantech at EDC. I am pleased to serve as your MC for today. I hope that you have been enjoying Cleantech Export Week this year and that you have found the content to be engaging, inspiring, and relevant in providing insights into the trends, opportunities, and future of Canada's cleantech industry. We have an exciting second day in store for you, but before we launch into today's program, I would like to open our event today with a land acknowledgement. I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I live on in Ottawa is a traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. The Algonquin peoples have lived on this land since time immemorial. I am grateful to have the opportunity to be present in this territory. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging them reminds us of our important connection to this land where we learn and work. While we are meeting virtually today, I encourage you to take a moment to reflect on the lands in which you call home and the responsibility we all share in reconciliation. For those of you who tuned in yesterday, you will have seen my colleague Dan Mancuso introduce the 2021 Export Stars. Once again, congratulations to Green Mantra Recycling Technologies, Expert Sea Solutions, and TerraMeta. Today, I have the great privilege to announce the first 2021 winner of EDC's Wants to Watch Awards. Each year, EDC selects 2 companies that are showing great promise, innovation, and growth to be selected as the ones to watch. We do this to bring spotlight to exciting Canadian cleantech companies who are leading by example and exhibiting great potential. Without further delay, I'm pleased to announce that our first Wants to Watch winner is Empower Homes Incorporated, or MISA, from St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. As you will see in this video, MISA produces smart thermostats that analyze user consumption and offer full remote control of residential heating and cooling systems through a single mobile app.
At MISA, we build smart thermostats. Smart thermostats to help homeowners not only save money on their energy bills, but also do good for the planet. What's different about MISA is that we have different types of smart thermostats for different types of heating and cooling systems. One for baseboard heating, one for in-floor heating, and now one for air conditioners. What's unique about MISA is that having a product for each solution, we're able to bring them together in a single MISA app so that you can have a unified experience. At its core, MISA is about energy efficiency. It's about helping homeowners reduce how much energy they use, but it also has some benefits to help electric utilities so that electric utilities can make sure that they are using the cleanest electricity as possible. So there's really a double benefit there in terms of the environmental benefit. EDC has been a partner for MISA on many fronts. It starts from as simple as helping us with credit insurance. It's helped us with guarantees on our line of credit for inventory purchase. EDC is also an awesome shareholder of MISA, and in general, also they've been a great supporter of us building our network of people that we can talk to. So EDC has been a support right across the board for MISA. So the future for MISA involves building the best smart home HVAC experience possible, and we want to bring that to as many customers, not only in Canada and the US, but to other countries as well. And so really excited to bring energy efficiency products to as many people to help fight climate change.
Once again, congratulations to MISA on being selected as a Wants to Watch for 2021. We look forward to following your continued growth and success. Our second winner will be announced by my colleague Lynn later today, so stay tuned for that. I would now like to introduce EDC's President and CEO, Mairead Lavery, who will be hosting our keynote speaker for a fireside chat. Since joining Export Development Canada in 2014, Mairead has put values and ethics at the center of her leadership approach. Appointed President and CEO of EDC in 2019, Mairead set out 3 pillars for her leadership: champion for trade, environmental, social and governance responsibility, and inclusion, diversity and equity. These values are the centerpiece for her and EDC's business agenda. Under her direction, EDC has pursued ambitious objectives, achieving strong growth and helping more Canadian companies do business in 200 markets around the world, while generating over $100 billion in trade and investment annually. In 2020, EDC became a major contributor to the Government of Canada's COVID-19 economic response, helping deliver billions of dollars in liquidity to companies across Canada. EDC also stands as the single largest financier of Canadian Cleantech, a proud supporter of women-owned and women-led businesses, and regularly ranks among Canada's top 100 employers. Prior to joining EDC, Mairead held executive roles at Bombardier, where she managed a range of large, complex portfolios over a 16-year career. She has a degree in management and accounting from Queen's University Belfast, and is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Ireland. She is also the first woman to occupy EDC's chief executive role in its 75-plus year history. Mairead, thank you for joining us today to interview our keynote speaker. Over to you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you, Guillermo, for your introduction. And I'd like to thank you, our audience, for joining our keynote session at EDC's 2021 Cleantech Export Week. It is my sincere hope you've been enjoying the content and that you've been making use of the virtual networking options to connect with other participants. As part of our program each year, we are pleased to welcome a keynote speaker. And this year, I'm so thrilled to have this distinguished leader join me for a fireside chat. I have the great privilege of introducing Marc-André Blanchard. As Executive Vice President and Head of CDPQ Global, Marc-André is responsible for CDPQ's three main regional operations outside of Canada: United States, Latin America, Europe, and Asia Pacific. As such, he is responsible for CDPQ's international offices, with the objective of diversifying the portfolio by taking a holistic view in approaching various markets. Mr. Blanchard has a solid track record as a lawyer, as well as in business and international affairs. Before joining CDPQ in September 2020, he was Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Canada to the United Nations in New York from 2016 to 2020. In that role, he demonstrated exceptional leadership in promoting better alignment of capital with sustainable development. I can personally attest to Marc-André's vision, passion, and effectiveness as Canada's ambassador to the UN. And I will wholeheartedly say that he was an excellent ambassador who served Canada and the global community so well. Prior to his time at the UN, Marc-André was Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of McCarthy Tétrault, one of Canada's leading law firms. In the 20 years he worked there, he also served as Managing Partner for Quebec, litigator, and strategic advisor for companies. In 2016, Canadian Business ranked him one of Canada's most powerful business leaders. In 2013, Canadian Lawyer ranked him among the 25 most influential lawyers in the country. And Catalyst Canada awarded him the CEO Recognition Award for his leadership on gender diversity. I am sure there are many accolades and accomplishments that I have forgotten to mention, but all this to say that we are very grateful to be joined by such a remarkable leader today. Marc-André, bienvenue. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here today.
Merci énormément. Je suis extrêmement heureux d'être ici, but you were way too generous in your introduction. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and it's a real pleasure.
Oh, thank you, Marc-André, and not at all. You have so much experience to share with our audience here today, so I can't wait to get started. So let's start with a big question about CDPQ. Not everyone understands the scale or the scope of CDPQ and the impact that CDPQ can have in the world, not just, in fact, in Quebec. So can you share with our audience just some of what's going on at CDPQ and what you're involved with at the moment?
Well, CDPQ is a great Canadian institution, a great Quebec institution. It's one of Canada's largest institutional investor. We have we just crossed the line for $400 billion of assets under management a few weeks ago. And we are invested in 65 countries. We have the beauty of why I say I'm so proud of CDPQ, and I actually believe it's a very unique institution for that reason. It has two mandates. The first mandate is return to depositors, and the joint mandate, the second mandate, is to support and help assist to the economic development of Quebec. So we have this beautiful dual mandate that actually has been very key and fundamental to what we're doing. And there's a lot of pride in actually making sure that we actually perform very, very well on both sides. We have around 43 depositors that represent some of the of agencies from the Quebec government. So it's not only from money for pensions, it's actually money for other government agencies. And we're invested in 65 countries in all asset classes that you would find in institutional investors. So around, the stock market, credit, private equity, infrastructure, and real estate.
And Marc-André, your role is new at CDPQ, and you're not long at CDPQ. So what specifically are you doing at CDPQ now?
Well, I'm in, CDPQ for now more than 50 years, has been in existence for now more than 50 years. For a long time, we had, up to 10 years ago, we had 2/3 of our investments in Canada and 1/3 in the rest of the world. And now, our assets under management grew so much that we had to diversify and everything. And now it's 2/3 outside of Canada and 1/3 in Canada. And so it became involved in all of the asset classes throughout the world. And all of the asset classes have been very, very good at going internationally on their own. But where it's newer, it's actually making sure that for our returns and for our depositors and for the economic development of Quebec, that we actually leverage the entire global footprint of CDPQ around the world. It's basically, going from an organization that has 10 satellite offices around the world, make sure that we now become truly a global organization that leverages each of its parts. And that's my role. So my role is to connect the dots. My role is to make sure that we benefit from having deeper feet on the ground in various parts of the world. We have 10 offices and we have 3 hubs, one in Singapore, one in New York, and one in London. That covers each of the regions. And obviously the head office in Quebec and Montreal.
Yeah, and I know my team are particularly delighted when we get to meet with your team in market. And many of our markets are the same markets, and it's particularly exciting what we can do together as this Team Canada, Team Quebec presence in some of the countries that we're in. It's super exciting.
And actually, this is, we all need to leverage each other in the entire world. All of us, the institutions of Canada and Quebec, we all need to go. And I'm a big fan of that. When in my old job, I did a lot of that. You've helped me greatly to represent Canada in many ways. And that was no surprise. The countries of the world, governments of the world wanted to see you as the leader of EDC, as they wanted to see some representative from other institutional investors like CDPQ. And so this is Canada around the world. To be relevant, we need to join forces, leverage each other, and connecting the dots amongst us. I'll give you one example where I never thought in all of what I'm doing for CDPQ, I'm helping a lot in business development, developing opportunities, partnership, and actually solving some issues. We own assets for the long term. So obviously, when you own an infrastructure in a country, government change, the situation changes and it presents some challenges sometimes. So I'm helping with that. One area where I thought that I wouldn't spend that much time at first, I thought it would come bigger maybe with years. But it's this, for example, all of our portfolio companies from Quebec, we've set ourselves a goal to actually make sure that they benefit from our global ecosystem. And that has been one of the biggest successes of CDPQ Global since, it's been a year now in existence. But in the last years, we've spent way more time, and the demand from our portfolio companies have been way bigger. And it's not only in terms of helping us understand new markets or regulation, or how do you do business in a certain country, do you know people in a certain country, but it's also connect within our portfolio around the world. So make sure that we all exchange opportunities and that we connect those opportunities between our partners. And this is how you create value throughout the portfolio. So it's in the interest of our 2 mandates, the mandate of helping the Quebec economy, but also in our mandate of returns to our depositors. So it's a very exciting, and it's actually the right time to do this for what we need to be doing in the world to better align capital with sustainable development.
Oh, a great segue to my next question, Marc-André, because CDPQ was one of the early, I guess, movers towards sustainable finance and actually net zero climate action and some of the things that CDPQ moved on really quickly. And you're absolutely right. Canadian institutional investors are regarded around the world, and people are watching to see what they're doing. So talk to me a little bit about how did CDPQ get to make a net zero commitment, and what does it mean, and how is people reacting to this big institutional investor talking about net zero and climate action? And you just talked about sustainable finance.
In 2017, we launched our first climate strategy. And now, a few weeks ago, you've heard our CEO, Charles Lemont, who launched our renewed ambition, or 2.0, just on our journey to COP26. And what is in this, what we 4 pillars. It's very easy. So we actually want to increase the green assets that we have in our portfolio to $54 billion by 2025. We actually want to reduce our carbon footprint by 2030 by 60%. This is a very ambitious goal. And then we have a pillar about, and I think the most interesting part of our new 2.0 strategy is this third pillar, which is actually, we've been the champion of net zero, but net zero goals are needed, we need to pursue them. But that's now time to execute on that. How do we get from now to 2035 or 2050 to net zero, all of the goals that we've set for ourselves? And so our third pillar is about a $10 billion envelope that we want to actually dedicate to decarbonization of assets. So we're going to be making a difference with companies that are actually on a path to decarbonization, to actually support them through the decarbonization and actually help us get as a society to net zero by 2050. And then the fourth pillar was actually that we confirm our withdrawal from the oil producing sector. We had 1% of our assets there. We said we would continue to actually get out of oil production. Our goal there is not to actually contribute to raise the oil production, and that's why we made that commitment. We will remain in some ancillary business like pipelines. Even at the site, we're involved in some pipelines that carry oil. We will remain there, and we will remain in natural gas.
So this is a really clear strategy, Marc-André, an upgraded strategy with 4 clear pillars of where you're going. Now some will look at this and say, can you make money at this? Can CDPQ still deliver the returns it's always delivered? Is green green? And we've got a lot of people who will be listening into this who are in businesses that deliver clean technology and that are actually delivering products for transition. Can money be made at this?
I think I have no doubt that money can be made at this. I think, just think about, I see that fight against climate change as a huge opportunity for all of us who are interested in clean tech, interested in moving things for the transition. And I think we have no choice of actually better aligning capital with sustainable development. And we have no choice because, as the Secretary General of the United Nations said, this is the issue of our time, and I totally agree with him. We've seen that in the West this summer with the BC fires. We've seen that with the floods, with the rain. We see that all over the place. And then we have a new generation. We have the millennials. So the consumers are now asking for it. Mm-hmm. So you have the need as a society. You have the market. I've seen in the last 5 years a huge social shift of what used to be acceptable is now not acceptable. Mm-hmm. And at a pace I don't think we've seen that before in society. And then you get to, in the US, I was reading the other day a McKinsey report that was saying that a third of American consumers are actually boycotting one brand because of ESG motives. And this is huge. And now if you look in the financial services sector, you see there's such demand from investors, whether you're retail, like at the consumer level, or institutional, for actually green investments and green assets. Look at our own goals that we've set for ourselves. That creates a huge demand. The question is, I mean, are we going to create a huge increase in prices and value? I think, this will need to be calibrated and managed throughout the years. But this is why we need to do things differently. I think it's something that we haven't faced as in our lifetime, a shift in an economy like this. Mm-hmm. And I think what we will need to be doing is look at how we do things, look at profit differently, but further than that, look at how we do produce things differently. Like how do we invest differently? So it's a creation of all sorts of platforms that we didn't think were natural before. I mean, even like our role as investors, our role as innovators in the private sector or entrepreneurs, and the way we need to connect things, it's going to be way different than what we've done before.
Just to build on that, Marc-André, so you talk about the demand and the millennials, and we certainly see that, just in Montreal Climate Action and the reaction to Greta Thunberg when she was here, and just we do see that consumer activism coming through. But what's preventing people from doing more or actually getting into this? Like what are the obstacles that's either preventing companies for thinking about their own ESG journey or in particular climate action? You talked about investors are starting to see it, yet then we also hear about greenwashing and we hear about some of the challenges. So it seems that we never hear just about the positives, then people go straight into the negatives. And it's this really big Paris Accord agreement that we all, 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees, and it seems such a big thing to do. So what are some of the obstacles we should be trying to knock down or, get at?
There's a lot to unpack in your question. But I think it's fascinating, and I feel like, we'll have to fight all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And it's those who prefer the status quo, those who don't want change. But let's try to be concrete for the entrepreneurs listening to us. I invite them to think in terms of scale and speed much more than in the past. And that's why my idea of platform, we need platforms. Like we need clusters. There was Porter at Harvard who was talking in the 80s of clusters, of industrial clusters. And we created some in Quebec, some in Canada. But we need to go back. This model of building communities of actors and institutions like EDC and CDPQ, we need to be part of these clusters with other investors, innovators, universities, governments. Just think about, I'll give you an example that is very concrete for us. Who would have thought that an institutional investors like CDPQ, just think about that 10 years ago, it would have nobody would have raised it as a possibility that we would design, build, operate, own 100 kilometers of light rail train around Montreal. Electric.
Yeah.
And actually, this is very important for us because we wanted that to contribute to reduce the carbon footprint. We wanted that to reduce the inequalities and make sure that people could commute with shorter time towards Montreal and all of that. And so it was but all of this was an important component of it. But that was perceived 10 years ago as the job of government. That's not the job of the private sector to come in. But we came in with a very unusual partnership with the government of Quebec, yes, the Infrastructure Bank of Canada, the airport, Hydro-Quebec as a supplier of clean energy, and then the municipalities that the light rail train will go through. So it's a very, very innovative way. And it's kind of, some people may say it's a, community kind of style of investment. That some others would say it's blended finance. Some would say it's impact investing. It's all of that. And it's just not, and we need to learn from these examples, and we need to build on these examples. And like, for example, one of the biggest challenges we'll face with climate, sustainable finance is the lack of bankable project. We need to act very quickly, like never before. And so will there be, and there's a lot of capital coming this way, then will there be enough bankable projects everywhere for infrastructure or for all sorts of other projects, whether in Canada or in North America or in the entire world and in frontier markets? In frontier markets, this is one of the biggest issue is bankable projects. But then we need to look at the role of institutions like the World Bank and governments, and see where there's a real market failure, where they need to intervene, and then where capital can come in, private capital can come in, and there are risks that private capital cannot take. Then we need to make sure the equation of risk return is met, so you may need new instruments. And I think the good thing is that the financing world is very creative. And so it's going fast on that side. Sometimes I find that on the legal side or on some policy side, it's not going as fast in some corners of the world. But we all need to make sure that we push on all levers that we have, all of the legs of the stool that we have to get to this at the same time.
So wow, so collaboration, the ecosystem, innovation, like huge initiatives there to actually drive this change. So Marc-André, if you were an entrepreneur sitting with a clean technology company, like what should they be thinking about? Like, should they be looking to try and get their project or to try and get into a CDPQ project? Should they be working as an industry? Like, what do you think they should be doing to be part of this private government financing sort of mix that's needed to solve the problem?
I would say all of the above. I think, and whatever is good for you, you have to remain focused on your business plan and what you can, where you can differentiate and look at what you're bringing to the table. But don't be afraid of, I often hear sometimes, this idea will be stolen, or this, build trust with good partners, and it's a new world, but we're all human beings, and we've been on this planet for a while, so we know some basic rules, and it's all like people talk to me about my career, and they say, this career as a litigator, then as a CEO of a law firm, and as an ambassador, and as now in investment, it's so different. It's not so different. It's all about trust and relationship. And it's how you build relationship, how you build trust, because that's how you're going to actually create these platforms and these partnerships that are needed. And that's what I'm saying to the entrepreneurs is, there are mentors available all over the place. There are coaches available. Like, go and see them. But don't get, on the other hand, don't make, I often say to my children, I'm fairly inadequate to coach them for the future, because this is a world that is foreign, probably more foreign to me than it is to my 22 or 23 years old. So I'm like, be careful. I say, take what I say with a grain of salt and go with your own instinct and go with your own competency, but make sure that you listen to the little voice in the back, that you have some audacity and some ambition in this, and push it, and make sure nobody can afford, I find these days, to block doors or to say no, these resources, I'll never touch them, or this assistance or support, I'll never touch it. No, have many conversations. And pick and choose from the buffet and tie it all together at the end, your own way. And people will succeed and continue to thrive. And in Canada, we start with such strong institutions. What's the success of Canada? This country is one of the most successful in the world. Why? Yes, because we have diversity but also because we have the rule of law, a very boring topic, but this is so key to what everybody is doing. But then we have innovators, and we have the universities, and then we have the community, the cooperative world in Quebec through Desjardins and other institutions. We have, and I could go on and on throughout the countries. And that's what makes us so strong. So we should, that's why it's so important to leverage all of this to your benefit. You're not, nobody's alone in this, and we have to remember that.
Can I just draw something out, and maybe using your experience as well as ambassador at the United Nations, so you got to be Canada's representative to many countries around the world. Like, is this and you talked about the advantage of the Canadian companies can bring. Do you think the rest of the world wants those Canadian products, those Canadian clean technology products? And can you see an ecosystem play? And I'm leading the witness now as Export Development Canada here, Marc-André. Like, we're actually, these companies that are listening to us today can get their products around the world into these different countries.
So you're leading a convinced witness.
Okay.
That's what I meant by audacity and ambition. Let's have some ambition as a country, because we have everything to succeed in this new world. Everything we're good at: technology, clean tech, digital, financial services, healthcare, education, energy. These are all the priorities. Every country in the world has that as part of the list of their top priorities. And this is what we're champions of in Canada. We're a champion, a global champion in each of these things. Whether we're first or five doesn't matter. When you look at where we're all in the first tier of the clusters of these things. We're all in the first tier, and these are all things that the world needs. So this is why it's a world of opportunities for Canadians. This is why when you're there and you're thinking about your market, think outside your own province. Think outside of the own region of Eastern, Western Canada, Central Canada, wherever you are. Or think about outside of Canada and think outside of North America. And I can tell you, my advice on export and where to go in the world is go where, Canadians are welcome all over the world, but there are places where we have stronger connection. And I advise you to go there. I've seen it of course, we have great connections with Europe because for historical reasons, we have great connection with Europe. Of course, because of our diasporas, we have great connection with India and other places in Southeast Asia and China and some places like that where we have. But to me, don't forget some markets like some parts of Africa where we are so welcome. And look at the growth and where cities will grow in the future in the next 30 years. Look at where the French language will grow. The French language, by the way, is the language that will grow the most in the next 30 years in the world because of Western Africa. Like, we have an advantage there. And you know what? When you look at Africa, there are 54 countries in Africa. So it's not all the same. And some of them are fairly, actually, there are great opportunities in many of those countries. Then you go in Latin America. In Latin America, they want to do business with Canadian. They love the Canadian brand. They want to be partners with us. And this is, I think, and that's beyond the traditional partners. Yes, Chile, and yes, but Mexico, of course, because of the trade agreement. But then there's Colombia, there's Costa Rica that shares our values. There's even Ecuador now. And I know the politics of Latin America are tough at the moment, but there are some corners where it's more stable and it's easier. But so I'm telling you, one area, Central Asia, countries that finish by stan, with the exception, obviously, now of Afghanistan, but some of the others, like Kazakhstan, for example. I can tell you, this is not for everyone, but this is a country that is looking at Canada because they believe they have the same kind of some of the fundamentals. So they are very open to do business with us in some areas. Then there are countries like Korea that actually are looking for partnerships with Canada. So you have some in the frontier markets, in the middle income markets, and in the developed world that actually where, so my point is, but look at, there are places where we have more relevance as a country, where our governments have better relations. And these are all important things to de-risk yourself, because it's not, going in frontier markets is not without risk. We know that. The currency risk is real. We know that. We know also there are other political and risk with institutions, corruption risk, that they exist for real. So you cannot go there blindly and naively, but there are ways, because of when, or you go with a partner from a country.
Or EDC could help you.
Or EDC can take a lot of those risks.
Which is a pretty important place. And maybe if I could add one thing, which you and I talked a lot about when you were at the United Nations, it's helping to solve a problem. And you and I had that discussion on the Caribbean and the small island state problem. And you look at where they're challenged with water and you just see, and the weather, of course, that when you're solving a real problem, actually the opportunity is but bigger to not only just do business, but to actually help a country. And I know you are a great advocate of that at the United Nations. Marc-André, you've been extremely generous to me in answering my questions. Any final thoughts that you wanted to share with the audience today?
Well, on your point, you've opened the door on the Caribbean. So I have to, this is a case where Caribbean people they're brothers and sisters. They're almost Canadians. And they are looking at us to help us. The problem there sometimes is the scale of the projects is too small, or the difficulties of accessing such small markets. But this is an area where there are plenty of opportunities for Canadians and Canadian entrepreneurs. And there are ways to de-risk yourself, whether with institutions, with EDC or other institutions, but also with partnering with some people. But that's a good example. And I'm strongly a believer that, Canadian, it's actually, I believe that our future will be even better than what the great life we've all had as Canadians. And we just, but for that, to give it to our children and next generation, we all need to be a little bit more ambitious and open ourselves to the world, even more than we've been doing. And I think that's, I'm a big believer that this issue of climate change and also fighting inequalities are two phenomenal opportunities for us. And we have a lot to bring to the world. And I think our entrepreneurs should be leading the way.
Marc-André, it's always a pleasure to spend some time with you. Thank you. I could hardly wrap it up any better than you just did about ambition and opportunity. I think I'll throw in a few other words that you mentioned today around innovation, around relationships and the importance of that. It's so great to see you again. I'm sure many of the people watching will be incredibly inspired, not only by what you've done in your career to date, but where you're taking CDPQ and how you're actually helping Canada and its brand around the world. Thank you, Marc-André. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup, Mairead. Quel bonheur. Merci.
Merci.
I would like to thank Mairead and Marc-André for that fascinating keynote session. As Mairead mentioned, we were thrilled to have a distinguished leader like Marc-André joining us to share his insights into the cleantech sector in Canada, the role of CDPQ, Canadian leadership, and the opportunities that the green economy presents. We will now be taking a break until 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, when we will be back with 2 more panels and our annual pitch competition. Until then, I hope you continue to leverage the Whova platform to network and connect with other participants. We look forward to seeing you after the break.